What causes the cycle historically is this sort of, you get a catalyst, you get a buildup of momentum, you have a halving, you get a lot of excitement, the market gets a little over levered, and then there's a negative setback and we pull back and restart.
Okay.
And that I think will still happen. Like investors are still greedy, the markets will go up, they'll get over levered, they'll get cleaned out. That will still happen. But the point I was making at Palm's conference is you have this other thing, which is effectively the US government has made crypto legal. It's allowed large financial institutions to move into the space. It's removed a huge regulatory overhang. And we're just in the early stages of realizing what that means.
매트 휴거는 암호화폐와 상장 지수펀드 ETF 분야에서 세계적으로 인정받는 전문가로 현재 자산운용사 비트와이즈의 최고 투자 책임자로 재직 중입니다. 세계 최초의 인공지능 기반 ETF를 개발을 했으며 그는 최근 인터뷰를 통해 비트코인이 장기적으로 100만 달러를 넘어설 수 있다고 전망하며 현재가 역사상 최고의 리스크 대비 수익 기회라고 강조합니다. 이런 그가 대규모 금융기관들의 암호화폐 시장 진출 가능성과 함께 비트코인의 상승장과 XRP ETF 승인 가능성, RWA 시장, 기관 자금들의 스테이킹 참여 증가와 시장 성장에 대해 말합니다.
And what it means is there's trillions of dollars of capital and the smartest financial minds in the world coming into this market. And that's just a bigger deal. So will there still be this ripple? Yes, but you'll just lose it amidst this massive tidal wave of institutional interest. This is the cycle, if you want to use the word, where crypto goes mainstream, where institutions move into the space. And that's just such a bigger deal than what's historically caused these cycles in crypto. It's just too big a force to deny.
Anything that you're watching this year you think that will really start to maybe ignite this?
I think we've already seen it on Bitcoin. So on Bitcoin, you have this fundamental supply-demand mismatch where you have institutions, corporations, and governments moving into the space. And that's the reason why Bitcoin has outperformed even tech stocks. Usually during volatile market periods, Bitcoin underperforms. You're seeing it outperform because it's already into this institutional phase. For the rest of the market, for Ethereum on down, to get into this phase, I'm really looking towards legislation moving through Congress on first stablecoins and then market structure. Those are the two all clear signals that the largest financial institutions in the world can move into the space beyond Bitcoin. And I think if we get this, which many people think we will get before the August congressional recess, I think that will be what catalyzes us and moves us forward.
All right, with that being said, because we're getting into kind of the regulatory environment right there, and you're talking about the Trump administration, their first 100 days in office are now pretty much on cue. What would you give President Trump and the administration in terms of a score? What do you feel?
I can't give them one score, Paul. It's like the best of times and the worst of times. So from a crypto-specific perspective, I would give them something in the mid to high 90s. They've delivered on their core promises to crypto. You've seen the SEC shut down multiple lawsuits that were hamstringing the industry. You've seen the FDIC shut down Operation Choke Point 2.0, which was restricting crypto companies' access to banking. You've seen a White House executive order making the growth of digital assets a national priority and establishing a Bitcoin strategic reserve and a crypto asset stockpile. Those were all sort of crazy dreams to have a year ago, and they've all happened. The other score, however, is they've introduced a lot of shocks into the economy. I know that we're sort of smoothing out from the initial tariff tantrum, but they have introduced a lot of uncertainty and volatility into the market, and that's what's kept these assets from rising to the upside. But generally speaking, I'm hugely optimistic. The most important thing for crypto is that crypto regulatory setting, and that's just gone exceedingly well. So I'm very positive.
Here, and of course, ETH could be in a very interesting spot right now. If you look at the Ethereum spot ETF, this is total net inflow, you'll start to see a little bit of action happening here in the last few days. Of course, we haven't seen these kind of moves really for quite some time. Do you feel like this is setting Ethereum up, back to your point, for institutional grade awareness to where we're going to start seeing some heavy activity? What are your thoughts on predicting Ethereum moving forward from here?
I think it's a positive sign. I don't think we're in the all clear yet, Paul, but I think it's a positive sign. You know, for Ethereum to enter a new bull market, it needs to turn two keys. one key is we need this regulatory switch to turn. We need stablecoin legislation. We need market structure legislation that lets big institutions move into the space. I think we'll get that before August, at least a down payment on that. So that key will turn. The other half is on the Ethereum side itself. The community has been confused about the direction that it's been going. The Ethereum Foundation has recently articulated a new direction. It recognizes the issues that have held it back over the last few years. That's the first step towards curing those issues. If that can continue to move on a positive path, and we get this positive regulatory development, I think you're going to see a very strong Ethereum bull market.
I'm looking at your fund holdings right now. You've got your weight, obviously, on Bitcoin at 79.4%, 9% on Ethereum, 5.4% on XRP, then Solana around 3%. So the stronger positions there, obviously, ETH, XRP, Solana, Bitcoin. When you look at ETH versus where Bitcoin, because Bitcoin, let's assume that we do, I just saw, Standard Chartered come in at anticipating around 120 by Q2 or in Q2. That would be significant, another all-time high. The likelihood, though, is we could see a pretty significant run on Ethereum. Would there be a position for Bitwise to maybe increase that holding on Ethereum?
Well, look, we're very bullish on Bitcoin. We're very bullish actually on Ethereum. We're bullish on Solana. We're bullish on XRP. Within that index strategy, it'll reflect what the market is doing, and some of our other strategies we may position alternatively. I do think there are a lot of investors out there who have moved into Bitcoin as their first crypto asset for the first time over the last year. And if I was one of those investors, I would wonder if now is time to broaden out your portfolio, right? If you're a new crypto investor who's Bitcoin only, there is more to crypto than Bitcoin. So maybe consider if now is a good time to broaden it out.
Well, I think some of the research is going with you on that. Here's a research report that showed cryptocurrencies that you currently own, and this is looking at mostly the younger investor. And it's pretty interesting. In 22 is 77%, Bitcoin now holding around 74, ETH somewhat flat at 49, but still almost 50% right now of the younger investor starting to move on that. Obviously, Solana continued to move up. Even Doge has been increasing overall. Ripple, though, of course, went from 6% up to 12%, obvious for reasons with the lawsuit now being off the cusp of where Ripple's been holding. But the point is to your exact statement there, diversification for these crypto assets seems to be happening now. And I think this is going to open up some bigger opportunities very soon. When you look at just in general, the XRP ETF, and I'm thinking XRP ETF and Ethereum ETF, which do you think is going to be the easier to sell to an investor coming in?
That's a tricky one. So whether we get an XRP ETF, of course, I don't know, and I can't speak to Bitwise's specific ETF. Broadly speaking, I think you have to look at, how excited are people about each ecosystem? One of the things XRP has going for it is that there are people who are skeptical of it, and then there are people who are strongly bullish on XRP. I think one of the challenges Ethereum has had is it's more mixed, more people in this sort of nuanced position. You even heard my take, which was it could be a great time to buy if we see these conditional news environments. So I think an XRP ETF will resonate, particularly with the people who have been bullish on that space, but want exposure in an ETF format. And maybe the fervency of XRP bulls will make it attractive in terms of asset gathering out of the gate.
Just look at the amount of SEC, I won't say approvals, but nods, and this is more the scenario that's happening with ProShares getting the launch of 3 XRP ETFs. And of course, we've already seen a large number, including Bitwise, that have applied for this. So this could be just around the corner with obviously the new chair coming in for sure. Look at, and this is more of a prediction. And yep. I look at what's happening in the real world asset side of things, and you see an absolute just skyrocketing of RWAs. Stablecoin, of course, leading the way there with Ethereum. Do you feel like RWAs in general will hit 1 trillion first, or do you think ETH as a market cap could hit 1 trillion first?
Well, that's a great question. The thing about it is I'm so bullish on the RWA space, particularly if you include stablecoins. I think we're going to get to 1 trillion really fast. So they will, I think my answer would be RWAs first, but I think you put to an important point, which is people thinking about Ethereum get lost in a lot of these short-term challenges, layer 1 versus layer 2, revenues versus current market cap. If you close your eyes and imagine a world where we have multiple trillions of dollars of stable coins and most assets move over public blockchains, what do you think Ethereum is worth? I think that can help you simplify the investment decision if you have a long-term outcome. Again, is there short-term challenges for Ethereum? Absolutely. But if you think stablecoins are going from 250 billion to 2.5 trillion over the next couple of years, and you think RWAs are going from 20 billion to maybe $1 trillion over the same time period, what is ETH worth then?
Right.
I think it's worth substantially more than it's worth today. And sometimes it's great to take that 30,000 foot view. It simplifies things a lot.
Blockchain has really started to roll off the lips of a lot of people that had not mentioned that before. A year ago, even 2 years ago. It is now definitely in the consideration. Some news in right here. Securitize Mantle launched an institutional crypto fund. As we all know, Securitize is highly connected to BlackRock. But the fund is also integrating liquid staking tokens. So this is going to include Mantle's ETH and then Bybit's BSOL and Athena. Does this tell you that we're going to see institutional capital start to move more into this opportunity from a liquid staking side of things?
Oh, absolutely. And it points to, the challenge in staking, as you know, Paul, is that you lock up your assets, right? That is the challenge. And so if you're running a fund as an institutional investor, how do you provide liquidity to investors who may come and go while still providing the yield that staking offers? Liquid staking has been around for a few years as a concept. I think what you're seeing is it now being adopted into these institutional funds because people have faith in it, right? Which makes sense. When you have a new concept, you want to see it tested in market volatility and up and down periods. Increasingly, people feel comfortable with these liquid staking tokens because they've been around, they've survived volatility, and so you're starting to see them penetrate into these institutional solutions, which is really important because that means institutional capital can participate in staking without the illiquidity lockups. It grows the market. So I think it's an important example, and you're going to see dozens of those examples, I would guess, over the next year.
매트 휴거는 비트코인과 이더리움의 차세대 상승장을 예고하며 미국 정부의 규제 완화와 제도권 진입, 특히 스테이블코인 및 실물자산 RWA 시장의 급성장을 말합니다. 또한 XRP와 이더리움 ETF 출시에 대한 전망, 유동성 스테이킹의 기간 확산 가능성까지 짚으며 향후 수조 달러 규모의 자금 유입 가능성에 대해 높이 평가하고 있죠. 우리는 객관적인 시각으로 투자를 해야 하고 지금 당장만 보고 투자할 게 아니라 미래를 보고 투자를 해야겠죠. 010-2472-0429 전화번호로 탈개미 적어서 문자 보내주시면 2025년 비트코인과 코인 시장에 대한 분석, 정보들 공유해드리겠습니다. 현재 우리에게 중요한 것은 이러한 정보를 어떻게 활용할 것인가입니다. 지금까지 영상 시청해주셔서 감사하고요. 다음에 더 좋은 영상으로 찾아뵙겠습니다. 감사합니다.